Imagine a brave man who earned the trust of a magnificent tigress. In an act that defies all expectations, he receives an unexpected gift, her precious cubs. But what happens next will leave you utterly astonished. An unexpected encounter. Usually, wild animals avoid humans because they are scared. But something incredible happened when a female tiger approached a man who was by himself. He never expected what she would ask him to do. The natural world has always been a magical and special place, and Joseph really enjoyed exploring it. He was born and raised in a small village in Russia, surrounded by a beautiful forest. When Joseph was young, his father took him into the forest to teach him how to hunt, track, and appreciate the beauty of nature. As Joseph grew older, he became a hunter himself, using his forest knowledge to find the best animals to hunt. But little did he know that his deep love for the wilderness would lead him to an experience that would completely change his life. It was just another regular day for Joseph, the hunter, as he woke up with the first sunlight and went into the forest, excited to start his hunting trip. His job was to get meat for some hungry customers and restock his own food supplies. As the morning went on, a magical light covered the forest, creating a mesmerizing glow that Joseph couldn't quite understand. When it was midday, he decided to take a break and enjoy a satisfying lunch. After successfully catching a couple of birds, he picked one to cook as his meal. Even though he found himself in an unfamiliar part of the woods, Joseph wasn't scared because he knew he could find his way back to the village by retracing his steps. Before him, a bright shimmer caught his eye, hinting at a delightful clearing that promised respite. Yet, little did Joseph anticipate what awaited him there. In the heart of the clearing stood a majestic tiger, a sight that petrified him with terror. The predator had clearly detected the hunter's approach and was fixedly gazing in his direction as Joseph emerged from the thick foliage. However, to Joseph's astonishment, the tiger exhibited no intentions of harm. Instead, the feline exuded an unexpected tranquility, capturing the hunter's attention and leaving him utterly mesmerized. Joseph's brave act of compassion. Joseph swiftly aimed his gun at the motionless beast, taking advantage of its behavior. However, the majestic tiger simply stared back without making a move. Puzzled by the tiger's actions and unwilling to harm such a magnificent creature if it posed no real threat, Joseph cautiously lowered his weapon and cautiously approached. Witnessing the man's advance, the tiger took a few steps back while emitting a soft warning growl. As Joseph drew nearer, he noticed unmistakable signs that the tiger was a female, her teats filled with milk, indicating the presence of nearby cubs. Additionally, he observed that she was visibly limping, causing him concern for her well-being. With growing apprehension, Joseph called out to the tigress in a gentle tone as he closed the distance. Remarkably, this seemed to ease the animal's tension, as she ceased growling and allowed him to come within a few feet. Upon reaching a closer proximity, Joseph discovered that the tigress's injury was far more severe than initially perceived. A bullet had struck the poor feline, likely an attempt by someone to harm her, causing a debilitating wound that had become infected and jeopardized her health. Driven by compassion, Joseph instinctively sought to provide aid, but the tiger's growls kept him at bay. Then something incredible happened. The tiger turned and walked towards the trees, but stopped at the edge of the clearing. Joseph began to hear tiny cries. It was the tiger's cubs, a mother's trust. The mother tiger gently lifted one of her young ones from the ground and slowly made her way back to Joseph while limping. Once she reached him, she carefully placed the cub at his feet. Then she went back to get a second cub and left it next to the first one. Joseph was very confused and amazed by this unexpected event. He didn't understand what the tigress wanted him to do with her cubs, and he was too scared to touch them, fearing her reaction. Just as Joseph was trying to communicate with the tiger and ask her to wait, she started walking away from him and her babies. Joseph was shocked and desperately called out to her, but she only glanced at him once before vanishing into the forest. The hunter was left stunned by the astonishing encounter. However, he understood that the mother tiger wouldn't abandon her babies without a good reason. He feared that she knew her time was running out and wanted to ensure the survival of her cubs. A bond of trust and courage. Joseph didn't want to leave the two young tigers alone to fend for themselves, so he picked them up and carried them out of the forest, back to his home. Once they were safely in the village, Joseph decided to take the tiger cubs to the local vet. He wanted to make sure they were healthy and be able to raise them properly. The vet examined the two young tigers and confirmed they were in good health. The vet also provided Joseph with instructions on how to care for them, including their diet and feeding schedule. Joseph followed the vet's advice carefully as the tigers grew older. Over time, the two tiger cubs, named Sasha and Alexei by Joseph, grew bigger and stronger. The officials from the nearby city zoo learned about the tigers and approached Joseph, offering to buy them for the zoo. Despite the large sum of money they offered, Joseph refused to sell the tigers. He felt it would betray the trust of the tiger's mother, who had entrusted her babies to him. Eventually, the time came for the two tigers to return to the wild. They had become beautiful young adults and had acquired the skills necessary to survive on their own. Joseph felt sadness as he bid farewell to the animals, but he knew it was the right thing to do because the forest was their true home. A couple of years later, Joseph was exploring the forest, hoping to find some game to hunt. Suddenly, an idea struck him. He decided to return to the clearing where he had first found the tigress and her cubs, hoping against the odds that Sasha and Alexei might still be in the area. When Joseph arrived at the clearing, he noticed that it hadn't changed much, except for several peculiar holes in the ground. Ignoring the holes, the hunter set up his tent and camped in the clearing for the night before heading back home the next day. While sitting by his campfire, Joseph looked up and saw a massive grizzly bear emerging from the woods and entering the clearing. The bear immediately spotted the hunter and started charging towards him. Realizing he had left his gun in the tent, Joseph had no choice but to leap up and sprint into the woods, desperate to escape the bear's pursuit. In a heart-stopping chase, the colossal grizzly bear relentlessly pursued Joseph, its thunderous footsteps closing in on the terrified hunter. Beads of sweat formed on Joseph's brow as he desperately searched for an escape route. Just as it seemed that his survival was a fading hope, two vibrant streaks of orange and black materialized from the dense forest. Sasha and Alexei, the two magnificent tigers he had nurtured from cubs, emerged with fierce determination, strategically positioning themselves between the menacing bear and the vulnerable man. The sight left Joseph dumbfounded, his astonishment mingling with an overwhelming surge of gratitude. With unwavering courage, Sasha and Alexei fearlessly confronted the enraged grizzly, ensuring Joseph's safety by valiantly fending off the formidable adversary. The battle waged on, the tigers matching the bear's aggression with calculated prowess. Exhaustion eventually overtook the ferocious beast, compelling it to retreat, its anger quelled by the resilient feline defenders. Overwhelmed by disbelief and gratitude, Joseph marveled at the fact that the two majestic creatures he had lovingly raised had come to his aid in this dire hour. After ensuring Joseph was unharmed, the tigers gracefully retreated back into the sanctuary of the towering trees, their noble presence fading into the wilderness. Although he knew their paths would never cross again, Joseph's heart swelled with immense joy, knowing that Sasha and Alexei thrived in their natural habitat, embodying the freedom and contentment they were destined to experience.